Hello and welcome to Principle 4. This is active brain training. Humans are creatures of habit. When we have practiced a task enough, it moves from being a conscious process and it moves to become an unconscious one. The easiest example of this is driving. When you first get in the car, there's so many different things to think about. You're doing this and that and that, and then mirrors and then signaling, and it's a very, very conscious process. But once you've completed your lessons, you've passed your test, you've been on the road for a little while, all of a sudden it's all on autopilot. Everything is just done automatically. And while this is really helpful in some ways, it can also be quite a challenge in another. Because when it comes to our thinking, we can get stuck in certain habits of thinking that lead us to feel low, that lead us to feel like we're struggling, that lead us to lose perspective on where we are at any moment in time. Now, to go into more detail in this, we need to think about a chemical compound called pregnenolone. Now, pregnenolone is what's known as a precursor compound, which means it gets turned into something else. And I'd like you to basically imagine a seesaw with pregnenolone in the middle. So pregnenolone can either be converted into cortisol, which is the stress hormone, which has influences on how you think, your cognition, how you feel, your immune system. Or pregnenolone can be converted into a substance called DHEA. And DHEA is really fundamental for improving well-being, for improving health, for improving sort of mindset, and your overall wellness is linked to DHEA. So pregnenolone sits in the middle of this balancing act. And depending on your thinking patterns, it tends to get nudged one way or another. So the fabulous thing about this is that we can actually manipulate this process and we can get more of the compounds that we want and less of the compounds that we don't want. And it's simple to do. What the research has shown is that when you connect to what you're grateful for or what you appreciate, what you're thankful for, this nudges the production of pregnenolone over towards DHEA. So when you're in a state of gratitude, you're more balanced, you're more grounded, and that changes your chemistry to actually move you towards being wellness promoting. On the flip side, if you're feeling indifferent, so if you're feeling ungrateful, if you're feeling just stressed because you're ignoring all of that stuff, then you move it more towards the cortisol side, and then you have the consequences of that. And because of the incredible amount of stimulation we have in our society today, because of being from a young age being bombarded by rules, guidelines, expectations, a lot of people have got into the habit of being indifferent. Being indifferent to who you are, being indifferent to the things that you have in your life, being indifferent to the world as a whole. And when we get into the habit of being indifferent, it leads us to being ungrateful. And when we're ungrateful, we're exposed to more stress, more strain, and really importantly, we lose perspective on all of the things that we do have. From a mental side of things, if we have a problem, okay, so say in our whole unconscious capacity, this problem that we have takes up about 5%, okay? Now, when we lose perspective on things, this 5% problem becomes a 95% problem. So we start to delete and omit all of the other stuff, and we get focused and obsessed on the problem that we have. And when we're in an indifferent state, we've got a chemistry where we're not really appreciating things, our mindset is focused on a problem, and this is really, really effective at getting you to feel anxious, stressed, and depressed. So by taking control of this process and actually nudging pregnenolone over towards the production of DHEA, you can start to improve your well-being. You can start to improve how happy you are. You can start to improve your cognition. You can start to improve your immune system, all by taking charge of this process. When we get started on this journey, you don't have to think about being absolutely overjoyed and absolutely fulfilled with gratitude. That's not a very easy step to start with. But what we can do is initially you can focus on what isn't going wrong. What things in your life can you acknowledge? What things are going okay? And although this might sound trivial, when we boil it down, you can think about things like, okay, I have hot water. Now, you wouldn't usually give that a moment's thought, but actually, when your hot water goes wrong and you've got a cold bath and a cold shower, that immediately becomes a big problem. And that's something you want to sort out straight away. But when we think about, okay, what's not going wrong? Actually, I've got warm water. I'm able to be washed. I'm able to actually stay clean. I'm able to use the washing up. I'm able to have access to this hot water. And then you go, okay, I can acknowledge that. So you're not getting overjoyed, but you're just paying attention to something that actually, oh, I appreciate that a little bit. And then that can start to build from what can you just think about isn't going wrong to what are you thankful for? Who are the people in your life that you appreciate? What can you really say, oh, I'm so glad I have that in my life? That might be a person, it might be a thing, it might be an animal. But when we shift to that mindset and we start looking for what you have and what you appreciate, that starts to change your chemistry. You might be asking, why is this so difficult? And the reason is it's hardwired into our system, so it doesn't come naturally. This is why it's active brain training. There's a phenomenon known as hedonic adaptation. And this is essentially where whatever is happening, you get used to it pretty quickly. So whether it's something positive or something negative, your brain gets used to it very quickly. The easiest example here is when you get a pay rise. You know, that first month or two when you get that extra wedge of cash in your bank account, you're like, yes, this is awesome. You start buying new things, you start upgrading your lifestyle. But then by month 3, month 4, it's just normal. It's just your wage. It's just what you get every month. And so your brain moves what's novel and what's interesting, and it quickly sort of processes it so it's normal again. So unless you're actively looking for things, people, and events in your life to appreciate, you get into the habit of being indifferent, which then lowers your mental fitness, lowers your overall well-being, and causes you to struggle. So this is a really important principle because it's active, it takes effort, but it has huge dividends when you give it some time and energy.